hosted by four-time Emmy-nominated producer Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet Billy O'Connor.
My brother, Frankie, my boy. How are you today?
It's finally cooling off a little bit.
Yeah.
In California, anyway.
Well, up where I am, about 75 miles from here, and of course I'm up in the mountains, so it's not only cool, it's...
you're going to have snow up to your ass. Snow up to your ass in a couple of months, pal.
Man, I hate snow. My wife used to say, look, it's snowing. How beautiful. I mean, when you're a fireman in the Bronx, and it's January, and you go up in a bucket, you're 80 feet up in the air at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're pouring water on a vacant, and that water's coming back and splashing on you, and you're freezing cold. You go back to the firehouse, they got to take an axe, I swear to God, and hit your turnout coat to get the ice off it, so they can put it over an exhaust. So maybe you'll have your coat for the next run you get,
Do you ever put over scotch?
And I always kept a little. I always had a flask. Always. And that don't work. You think it works because you figure a couple of nips to keep you warm inside. But that don't work. I mean.
How about the arsonist? Hey, Mom. Mom, the fire's lit and so is the fireman.
Oh, yeah. We actually had names for our arsonists, nicknames.
Yeah.
We had one guy. I mean, the guy, the vacants back in the day in the 70s when the Bronx was burning. We might go out to like 20 runs a night, and 6 of them would be vacants. And they'd retorch the same buildings, right? Mm-hmm. So we had one guy, Wayne the Flame, we used to call him. He knew us by our first names. I mean, it was entertainment for him. There was another guy in Harlem, Gasoline Gonzalez. We had nicknames. But this guy, Wayne the Flame, we'd pull up and he'd go, hey, Billy, how you doing today? How you doing, Wayne? He'd be there all bright-eyed waiting for the inferno,
Yeah, but you just hoped that he never walked into the bar.
Yeah, I would have beat his brains out. I hate cold, man. And my wife, she's from California, so she thinks it's like a great thing. I'm like, you don't understand. It's a nightmare. I mean, I used to go out and shovel like 2 feet of snow at 4 o'clock in the morning so you could start your trek into the firehouse, man. And you know what? Heat is uncomfortable. I mean, I was in Vietnam, heat, and I was in Phoenix, which makes Vietnam look like the North Pole. I mean, Phoenix.
But it's a dry heat, to quote my friend to quote my friend Michael Finney's act. So I don't want to steal from anybody.
It's a dry heat. Yeah. That's what my friend used to say. He said, plenty of pussy in Phoenix, but it's a dry pussy. Plenty of it. But yeah, man. I mean, I think heat is uncomfortable, but cold is painful. Once you get that cold, I swear to God, I'd be cold for 4 or 5 days after that. Like when you took a real bad feed with the ice. Man, I can't handle cold. I got no fan of cold.
So speaking of your place in Pine Mountain
Club,
did your refinance go through?
Yeah. The guy put me through. I mean, it's like found money right now, 2.5, right? I mean, that's found money. I'd like to borrow a shitload more.
Yeah, well,
get into that 20-year deal.
You beat me up for 20 grand, 20 years. No, last time.
That's what I was figuring. Maybe they'll give me. I'm 72 years old. If they give me a 50-year mortgage, sure. Give me $500,000. Give me $2 million. Give me $3 million. I'm not going to be around. I mean, I got a 15-year mortgage because I think I do the right thing by my wife. Although I'm trying to reconsider it. You remember we talked last week about age in general, and Jenny, right? Jenny's 20 years younger than me, right? She says to me, she goes, I always wanted a cat. She goes, why can't I get a cat? And I hate cats. I mean, I'm a dog guy. I just hate cats. Mm-hmm. But I don't want to seem like a lout, So I says to her, I write, I can finesse this, I can make this smooth. And I says to her, you know why? I don't want to get a cat? I said, let me tell you, because when Oliver died, when my dog died, I felt so bad. I said, it broke my heart. I don't want to go through that again. So I don't want to get a pet because when it dies, I can't take the pain, the emotional pain. You know what she said to me, Frank? She says, no, you don't have to worry about that. She goes, cats live 20 years. You'll be dead long before the cat. Now we're definitely not getting the cat. I can't forget it. No way.
That's pretty funny.
Oh, shit, yeah.
That's pretty funny. So on a serious note, what do you think of the Pope's declaration that he is for civil unions amongst all sex groups? Same-sex groups.
Yeah, you know what, man? I'm a recovering Catholic, as you know. I'm not, I was born Catholic, but I think, looking back at the Catholic Church, the amount of damage they did in Ireland and everything else. But this Pope, I like this Pope.
I like him too. I like this.
This Pope.
He's bringing it into the 18th. He's bringing the church into the 18th century.
Yeah. Yeah, he's bringing it all the way up into the 18th century. But he's really progressive, and I like this idea that. He's not. Not letting these guys live in riches. When you think about it, Christ had one tunic. That was it. These guys with the silk robes and the gold and the silk slippers. I mean, I got my own theory, and I think the reason there's so many Irish pedophiles in the priesthood is because of the archaic education, of sexual education.
I don't think it's just the Irish.
It's not just Irish, but there's a damn good percentage of them that are. You know why? I think that the sex education was so backward, and this is true. I was in Ireland in 1971. First time I went back to Ireland from when I was born, and I went into a drugstore in 1971 to try and buy condoms. And I swear to God, the guy behind the counter looked like I was trying to buy heroin. He says, "This is Catholic Ireland. You can't buy condoms in Catholic Ireland."
So that's why you never used them.
No, I never used them because I think who needs a raincoat on a sunny day?
Put one of those little caps over it.
But yeah, I mean, so I think my theory, of course, there's no logic, there's no data backing up this theory. Just my theory is that a lot of Irish kids, because they had no sex education, they were like 13, 14 years old, and they realize they're not attracted to girls, and they say, well, you know what? I must love God. And then they get in the seminary, and they find out it ain't really God they're interested in. So I think it had a lot to do with it. But that's just an unfounded theory that I toss out there. But I like this Pope, and I think I'm glad that the Catholics came up with a little bit of sense and reason, because, look, you take these evangelicals. You take a guy like Pat Robertson. I mean, this guy's batshit crazy. I mean, he preaches that gays banging each other in the ass is what causes earthquakes and hurricanes.
It doesn't? It doesn't if you're in the next room.
No. Homosexuals don't cause hurricanes. It's the Muslims. It's the Muslims. Yeah, but I think it's crazy. I mean, they got even Mike Pence. Do you know Mike Pence actually made a speech where he thinks that you could take gays and shock them back into being straight? I mean, that's
let's not go there.
It's bizarre.
Let's not go there. But why doesn't he start with Rudy Giuliani?
Yeah, they busted Rudy again, huh?
Yeah.
He was just tucking his shirt.
He was tucking his shirt in his pants, laying on his back with a girl standing over him. He was tucking his shirt in his pants.
Yeah, he has a lot of credibility anyway, Rudy. I kind of buy that. Yeah, but the more I think about Pence's theory, I was thinking, it sounds ridiculous, but if I told you I was going to take your prick and hook it up to a car battery and give you 300 volts, you might not turn gay, but you'd definitely consider it. I mean,
yeah.
So I think maybe he might have a point there. I don't know, Pence.
Well, speaking of sexual conversations, what about Jeffrey Toobin of CNN?
Look, I always give everybody the benefit of the doubt. but if you're on a Zoom meeting with your bosses and you're playing touch pee-pee, I gotta figure you deserve everything you get. I mean, no matter what they do to this guy, I gotta figure, I don't care. Lock him up for stupidity. I mean, come on. I mean, you gotta play.
Touch pee-pee?
You touch pee-pee at a Zoom meeting, you know what I mean? I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I just don't understand these guys. I mean, really, can you? I know you're motivated by sex.
What do you mean I'm motivated by sex?
More than most people. You're motivated by sex. But how can these people be so silly to expose themselves? I mean, how could they have to have it that bad that they would go to such great extremes?
Well, the only thing I can think of, Frank, he must be extremely proud of that appendage. What about these guys that send dick pics? What about when Brent, what is his name? Who was the quarterback for the Packers that was sending out dick pics? Brett Favre. Yeah, and he was calling it little Brett. I mean, it's like a sock puppet. I mean, what makes guys think, hey, you want to get, what do you think it is?
Well,
and send a picture of your prick. I mean, what is that doing?
What about the guy in New York, the congressman?
Spitzer. Elliott.
No, not Spitzer.
The P. What's his last name?
His wife was Clinton's Hillary's
I thought it was
advisor.
Elliott Spitzer.
No, he was the guy that got caught with a hooker. We're talking.
I can't keep up.
We're talking about the guy was sending dick pics. What was Hillary's
His name is pretty much the same.
His name is.
You can't keep up with him. What's the deal? What makes guys think? It's like the old days. When a woman would walk by a construction site and all these guys would go, hey, baby, Joey, I mean, like Seinfeld says, these are men who clearly ran out of ideas. You know what I mean? This is what they think is going to happen. Like a girl's going to say,
Wiener.
Anthony Weiner.
Anthony Weiner.
And we should have remembered that name.
Yeah. Totally.
I mean, Weiner. I mean, we definitely should have remembered that name, Anthony Weiner. Yeah, I mean, you can't keep up with these guys. I mean.
He was destined, though, Weiner. Come on.
And I'll tell you something else. Not right wing, left wing, obviously, Jeffrey Toobin, but an awful lot of these guys that protest too much. The Shakespeare line about me thinks he does protest too much. Most guys that really, really want to beat up homosexuals or protest against them it's a genetic thing. It's like having blue eyes. You want to persecute a guy for being short, for being small, for being tall. I mean, they pay their taxes. They got the same rights as everybody else under the Constitution. I think that anybody who's against gay marriage is a fucking asshole. But in fairness, the guys on the other side of the aisle, or who think that gays shouldn't get married, they don't think that marriage should be about fucking assholes. So we'll give them a bye, But I'm happy about the Pope. To get back to the original question, I'm happy about the Pope being progressive the way he is.
Yeah,
I think he can do a lot of good for the church. Because the church, you're right, bring him into the 18th
18th century, yeah.
Yeah, because they're living. It's tough to ask anybody to be a firm believer when you see all these medieval ass rapists in Boston and everything else, and the church covering it up. It's really tough. I mean, to bite into that.
Well, on a happier subject, fucking Amazon is finally getting the books out.
Yay! Because they're clamoring, Amazon.
They're clamoring.
Pay attention. The clamoring is going. I just got my notice. I looked at the email that I got because, like you suggested, we each ordered a book to see how
fast it came and where.
Exactly. So,
but a lot of people have gotten them already because they have them in stock.
But they got them from Acclaim, right?
No, they got them from Amazon.
Amazon said to me today, they didn't say to me, they sent me an email. We don't talk directly, me and Bebos. We used to.
Bezos.
But, so they told me October 31st.
Yeah, they told me October 27th. So that's good. So that means by next week, everybody should have books.
And then, of course...
except for the people that couldn't buy books because it said temporarily out of stock. But it doesn't say temporarily out of stock now. It says it'll be delivered on October 27th.
So I guess once the books gets out and people start reading it, we'll be doing all the major talk shows. We'll be doing Oprah and everything else. Once people realize it, they'll say, "Look at this thing is."
We'll be doing Charlie Rose.
Charlie Rose.
We'll be doing.
I don't think Charlie can do Charlie Rose.
We'll be doing Mike Wallace.
Yeah.
We'll be doing Larry King. Yeah. We'll be doing every show that's not on the air.
Didn't Charlie get busted too? Isn't Charlie Rose not on anymore because of?
Of course not. That's why I said it.
Yeah. I'm just checking. I mean, he's not.
Mike
on.
Wallace is dead.
No kidding.
Yeah.
He's still dead?
He's still dead. How the hell can we be on with Mike Wallace? He's no longer with us.
I didn't know he's still dead.
No.
Yeah, I thought he made a comeback. No, who knows?
That's his son.
That's an old Bobby De Niro line, right? Did you kill him? What do you mean? Is he dead? A little bit. Yeah, he's a little bit. Yeah, he was a little bit dead when I left him. It's like a little bit pregnant, you know? But, yeah, I mean, they pay taxes, man. I think gays got the same rights as everybody else, legitimately. I mean, come on. You're going to let people that don't pay taxes make laws to restrict them?
Oh, I can't go there because I was going to go to having a Chinese bank account and paying more taxes in China than you pay in the United States.
But we don't want to do that.
We don't want to go. We don't want to
do that. If we were, we would, but we're not, so we don't.
So what else?
I don't know, man. I got a couple of, bad news from New York type deals. A couple of guys not doing well. It's the same old shit with the firemen. It's sad. It's like, this guy was at 9/11. He's not doing well. So I count my blessings, Frank, every day. You know what I mean? I mean, right now I'm as healthy as a trout. I got the blood pressure pills and shit like that. But other than that,
and you don't need the blue pills. Or do you?
Are you kidding me? Blue pills. I get mine from China, right? Because I think I don't know what they charge you for
blue pills.
For the blue pills in America, but I get them from China. They charge me $1 a piece, and I get 100 milligrams. I get like the strong boys, and I eat them like M&Ms. I mean, I got to tell you, I eat them like popcorn. Then there's nothing wrong with my prostate. I think I can hit a bathroom from my bed. Without getting out of bed, I could probably just do a stream.
That's too much. That's way too much information.
But I eat those things but the thing is, these people from wherever I'm buying them from in China, they must call me 10 times a day. I said, you just sent me 100 of these things. I said, what do you think, I'm running the whole house? Give me a break. Give me a couple of weeks. Give me a month. Give me a year. But yeah, I eat them till my hair gets stiff. I eat them like I look like Don King.
Pretty funny. Pretty funny.
I eat enough to give all of us in this room a stiff neck. Forget about it. I eat them. Pop them babies right down. 100 milligrams, no problem. And then, and I even asked a young kid one day. Guy was like 26 years old. So for me, he's a young kid. Young man, I guess. And I said to him, you eat Viagra? I said, what are you kidding me? Why would you need Viagra? When I was 26 years old, I said, peanut butter would get me hard. I mean, if I took oxygen.
The thought of peanut butter would get you hard.
Yeah, I said, what are you? He says, you know why? He says, because why not? It's there, it works. And I guess they're all paranoid about having a failure. We used to call it in our day a failure, now they call it erectile dysfunction.
Erectile dysfunction, right.
We used to call it a failure, right? The guy had a failure.
We used to call it Ed. If we had ED when we were kids, we'd call it Ed. So that every stiff in the neighborhood who was named Edward would have a bad nickname.
Yeah, I don't know if there's any young people out there looking at watching our podcast that we might be kind of dated. But if you are young people out there, let me give you a piece of advice. I've had a lot of failures over the day. It's just things that happen. When you're enough women, you're going to have failures. But don't be a schmuck. Don't sit on the side of the bed and give that old line. I don't know what happened. It usually works. I'm not gay. Screw that. That ain't helping nobody. Shift the guilt. Do what I used to do. Blame it on her. Are you kidding me? I seen 1,000 of those things. Let her sit on the side of the bed and weep. Take some advice from me. An old timer.
Well, we've certainly veered off course today.
Oh, yes, we did.
So, Billy, we're fortunate today to have a daughter of Old Ireland with us, a Pulitzer Prize-winning author, Mary McNamara from the LA Times. What do you think of that?
Well, I'm astonished. I mean, just to talk to a Pulitzer Prize columnist, I got my journalism degree at 62 years old, so I really didn't expect to be a cub reporter. But I'm delighted. You can be Mary. My name is Billy O'Connor. My name actually is William Patrick Michael O'Connor.
Well,
I was born in County Cork.
All right. Well, yeah, we're Mayo and Leitrim because I'm a McNamara who married a McNulty, so it's all the way back.
County Mustard, as we used to call it in the neighborhood, County Mayo. I come over here when I was young, of course. It was 1950 by boat to Ellis Island.
Oh, wow.
So I'm...
You're legit.
I'm legit. I mean, the whole deal.
What are you doing here if you have an Irish passport, man? I'd be over there.
Don't think I didn't renew it either, Mary. I definitely renewed it. And my daughter is asking questions all the time.
Yeah, no, she totally. I mean, we tried to do it, but it's my grandparents, or my great grandparents. So I'm one removed.
That's what I was going to ask you, what generation you are.
Yeah.
But I'm thrilled that you came on the show today. Just absolutely thrilled to meet you. You have no idea how happy I am to see you.
I'm excited.
And I read some of your columns, and I love the way you write. I mean, you got tongue planted firmly in cheek as you're going through really acerbic stuff.
These days, you have to have a little humor.
I think you have to have a lot of humor.
For sure. So, Mary, what made you want to get into journalism, or how did you get into journalism, or did you stumble into journalism? How did you do that?
I got into journalism because originally I wanted to be a veterinarian, but when I took chemistry and did not do so well, I realized that the reason I wanted to be a veterinarian was because I wanted to be James Herriot of All Creatures Great and Small, and he was also a writer. So I thought, well, maybe what I really wanted to be was a writer. And then my parents were like, well, you should really pick something that you can actually get a job in. And so journalism was kind of the natural leap. And it was also, I'm of the generation, All the President's Men, the movie, the generation where we all thought, well, we'll become journalists, and then every man that we're surrounded with will look like Robert Redford and Dustin Hoffman. And then that's not true. But we couldn't get our money back. So here I am.
They told me that when I was 62 in journalism school. They said, you're studying a dead occupation here, all you people in journalism, because it's kind of amazing how it's morphed, journalism.
Absolutely. But it is not a dead occupation. It is a very important occupation, as
without a doubt.
4 years has proven. But yes, it is definitely morphing.
Yeah, well, two of my big heroes are David Halberstam, who was an investigative journalist. Of course, after Vietnam, he wrote The Best and the Brightest. And after I read The Best and the Brightest, I think I devoured everything he wrote. And Cy Hirsch again from Vietnam. Cy Hirsch, uncovered the My Lai massacre, and he wrote a great book about Kennedy, Beyond Camelot. But were you inspired, because you're from Baltimore, were you inspired at all by Mencken and the great tradition of the Baltimore Sun?
I was inspired by Mike Royko.
Chicago.
Yeah, but I mean, the Baltimore Sun carried him for a while. And I just remembered that when I decided to become a journalist, my goal was to become a syndicated columnist. And I actually am a syndicated columnist.
Wow.
And it's kind of it doesn't feel like my dream came true. But they did.
Time to start raising the bar again.
I guess I should have said, what I want to do is, I don't know what. No, I'm very happy doing what I'm doing. And I'm very fortunate to be, working at this time and given the freedom that I'm given. And I'm very grateful for it.
Well, it's definitely an important time to be writing op-eds, that's for sure.
Well, how has your job changed in the last 10 years?
Oh, well, my job has changed literally. I was a television critic for 12 years, 15 years, something like that. And then when the LA Times was under extreme duress, I was asked to go into management to sort of, I don't know what, protect people. I don't know. But so I agreed, and I went into management for a couple of years. And then when the paper was sold, and sane people came back into the building, and we had an editor-in-chief who actually was a journalist. I asked if I could go back to writing, and they said yes. And so now I'm a columnist because Lorraine Ali replaced me as television critic, and so I'm now a culture columnist. So now I get to write about anything and everything, and that is pretty cool.
It sounds like
That's really cool. So you can write about politics, economics, and social issues that are going on because
it's all wrapped up in culture. I mean, there is no separating the popular culture from any discourse that's going on. And, that's something that I think journalism has come to recognize in the last 15 years, that this idea that there is no separation between what you want to call the lifestyle pages or the entertainment pages and the news pages, because everything is playing out everywhere. There's no separation. It's like our political situation right now has as much to do with culture, has as much to do with television, has as much to do with, language as it does with, kind of the traditional notion of politics, of conservative versus liberal versus neoconservative, whatever.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. I mean, it's all intertwined, and I guess that has a lot to do with the information age that we're living in too, as well.
Yes, I mean, I feel like it was always intertwined, but I think that the speed, the digital revolution allows us to see so much of it in real time, so much of it visually. It just has sped. You see the connections as they're happening or as they're being revealed, as opposed to in the olden times when I was, 10, 15 years ago. It would take somebody, like, they'd write a book or they'd write a big magazine piece, and it would be like a year out, and they'd be sort of connecting the dots. Now the dots are being connected right in front of our eyes.
Well, technologically speaking, a show like this would not have been possible 10 years ago because it would have been cost prohibitive.
Well, yes.
We've got 4 cameras, we're switching, and we could do these things now. We couldn't have done it 5 years ago, and that's staggering to me. And we're getting a viewing also, which is more staggering to me, because who the hell would want to live to speak to 2 old guys, talking about anything they want to talk about? But the fortunate thing is we get to invite a lot of people that I've worked with in the past and that Billy's worked with in the past, and have guests like you. So thank you, and thank you, technology.
Yeah, thank you, technology is right. So, Mary, besides your column, you've written 2 books. I see one is a novel, for sure. That's
They're both novels.
They are both novels. And one is called The Starlet, and the other one was called
Oscar Season.
Oscar Season. Now, do you have a different process? Of course, when you're writing, it would seem to me that you're writing a column. You have a definite plan. You only have a certain amount of inches to write the column. Totally different when you're writing a novel?
Oh, yes, very different. And it is difficult. I was just talking to somebody about this. When you are a journalist, you have to function within certain forms, within deadlines, within also just a certain, a language pattern. And you develop a voice, if you are a columnist, and then to kind of turn all that off and try to write fiction it's really difficult, because for one thing, and it's really funny to watch my journalist friends who either are starting a novel or starting a work of nonfiction, you're not done in a few days. It just goes on, and it's like you're not even done in a few months. I mean, obviously there are plenty of journalists who work on pieces for months. There are very few journalists who are working on pieces for years. And, when you sit down to write a book, it's going to take you at least a year, and that's if, it's going to, and that's not including the edits, and that's not including, the notes from your agent and the publisher and all of that stuff. So that is, I think, very difficult for many people to kind of accept, because they're like, okay, I should be done with this by now, and you're not.
Well, that's interesting that you say that, because, Mary motivated me. She was one of the motivating forces for me to write Lips. She said, "Why don't you write a book?" And I said, "Well, I've been thinking about it for a long time, but I just, don't think anybody will be interested in my book." But she said, "Well, why don't you write it about, the people that you knew, and that gave me a lot of credibility and gave me, motive to go on. That's also why I contacted Billy. I can't.
Boy, you regret that day, yeah?
I can't.
You picked up that phone.
I can't.
But to Mary's point, you're never done with the
No,
novel.
you're never done. You're never done because
you're never done.
Because when you think you're done, you're not done.
You're not done.
And then when you think you're done some more, you're not done.
I used to think you could write a page a day. Well, at the end of the year, you got 365 pages. If you take about 60 pages out of there, you might have a decent novel. But you're never done.
Right. And then you have to sell it, and you're never done selling it.
And finally, you got to just say to yourself, well, perfection is the enemy of good enough, and get it out there.
Well, I never do that.
Well, you can't. You'll never be perfect. I mean, never.
Yeah. Well, you can't take a good enough approach to writing.
Let me ask Mary again with your column. Of course, when you're writing a column, you get a certain amount of inches. You got a lead. You got your kicker. You know exactly what you're going to put in it. But people that write novels have different processes. Do you start the same way as you do as a column? You know where it's going. You know what your end is going to be, or do you let your characters take it?
Well, I mean, I've only written 2, and they were sort of framed. They had a mystery frame about it, so you had to sort of work that out first. And yes, I think when you're dealing with that kind of a story, you really need to have your ending first, and you almost work backwards, because otherwise you're gonna if you have something that absolutely has to happen at the end or has to be revealed at the end, then you have to work backwards. I don't know that that's true with non-crime related or non-mystery related stories, but everything changes. And I mean, even when you're writing a column, you sit down and you think, I'm going to write this. I have it, this is what I want to say. And I would say like 60% of the time, once you start writing and you're having this ongoing conversation with yourself, it changes, and maybe not entirely, but like sort of the focus will change, or examples will come to you and you're like, oh, well, wait, maybe that's the point. And when you're writing a novel, if you have characters that you believe in, they will change the book, because, as you're writing a scene, you'll be like, well, she wouldn't do that. The thing that I thought, 5 weeks ago had to be done. This character that I built wouldn't do that. So now what is she going to do? What would she do in this situation? So it's kind of a much, it's more of a balance, because you are like sort of having conversations, not just with yourself, but with these characters that you've created, who should, be alive in your mind, because if they're not alive in your mind, you're not going to be able to bring them alive on the page.
So that's writing a novel. When you won the Pulitzer, how much work went into that column? Was that column written in a week, or was it written in a day, or was it written? I mean, the material was accumulated over a vast period of time, of course. But how long did you actually take and write the column?
Well, when you win a Pulitzer for criticism, it's 10 columns that are written, that is submitted, and I was a finalist 2 years in a row before I finally won. So you try never to think that you're writing to win any award. I mean, that's like never going to help you. So I can't really say that I was, thinking about that, or thinking about like, oh, well, I should take more care with one thing or another because I might win a prize. So, I mean, basically they were, it's a combination of review, cultural essays in it. And so I guess the question would be more like, there were certain of my pieces over the years that I felt were making a much bigger point about how television was changing our culture. And so those stories could sometimes take a few days. I mean, it's hard to say, Frank. I don't know what, your process. I would say 70% of my writing in my head. So it's like when I sit down and start typing, there's a lot of work has already been done, because I don't sit down and start typing until, unless I'm on a huge deadline and my editor has said, we need it in 30 minutes. Then I just start typing and hope that somehow the words will miraculously fall into place. But, until you have a lead, until you have like maybe a key phrase that you're going for, until you have to get yourself emotionally because then you can find out, well, maybe you don't have anything to say. Like maybe you had 3 great lines and it doesn't mean anything. And now you got to go back to the drawing board. But maybe it's also you've gotten yourself so caught up in how you're going to say it that you've forgotten what it is that you want. What is the information I want to exchange with my audience? Like start with the really basic thing. And I find that saying it out loud sometimes helps,
And you're always getting in touch with your inner self. You were talking before about, it's already written in your mind, 70% of it. So it's constantly about trying to get in touch with your inner self. I find if I'm in the shower, if I'm driving around, an idea will hit me, and I just write down 3 words to say, don't lose that idea, But
it's so helpful, man. I miss it, I've written
Traffic.
stories stuck in traffic. And I wrote this piece about how I actually miss my commute, which all I did was complain about my commute when I had a commute. But that time, exactly what you were saying, Billy, it's like you're just, it's a very specific place to be in your car where you're doing something, but you don't need to, you don't, especially when there's traffic, you don't need to pay that much attention. And you've got this whole thing going on. And I miss that time because
I know Mary's a big fan, or had been a big fan of Murphy Brown, and you talk about traffic. The idea for the original pilot of Murphy Brown came to Diane English when she was stuck in traffic on the Ventura Freeway, and between where she lived in Malibu and by the time she got to Warner Brothers, she had flushed out the entire outline of the show. So that's what traffic will do for you. Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of that. I think you get your best ideas in the shower or when you're walking along. It just serendipitously it comes into your mind, and you just write down a couple of things to keep it in your mind.
So, Mary, how do you think that COVID has affected Hollywood today?
You mean besides shutting it down?
Well, it's now gradually opening.
Gradually opening,
but
yes.
I think will it has it changed forever?
That's an interesting question. I keep talking to people about things that they like about the remote working. Like some people, I was just talking to a showrunner and he was saying it was so much like some of the post-production, that he would normally drive to the studio to do, really he didn't need to. And he was thinking, I'm never going to do that again. I'm always going to do it remotely. On the other hand, he was saying he was really grateful that he had already been through his edit of his show, because that's something where you really do have to physically, or at least he has, physically be over the shoulder of your editor going through the episode. So I think, we're probably going to see people, I think we're going to see sets that are much less crowded, that I think you're going to see, there are a lot of people on sets, as Frank, that don't need to be there, and then I think that there will be a time when those people will just not be there.
Writing rooms are all virtual now.
I don't think that's going to happen because everybody that I've talked to, that's the biggest problem is they really miss the writers' room. And actually, I think I might do a piece about like everybody misses their whiteboard because you can't.
Right.
You can't use a whiteboard on, I mean, you can, I guess, if you did Skype, but it's like ridiculous. It's the same. Everybody's using a Google Doc and everybody's like, okay, Google Docs are good for certain things, but you can't do an action sequence on a Google Doc because you need to actually like draw things. And so I think as soon as people can safely be in writers' rooms, they will again, because I think that's what people really miss because just as Billy was saying about, walking along.
That's what writers really miss.
Yeah, and they miss like being able to just like get up and walk around and talk to each other and like go out to lunch and talk to each other, and that you cannot replace that energy, that physical, give and take. You can't replace it on screens, no matter how hard we try. So yeah, I mean, I think that they will go back as soon as humanly possible. But I think you will see things that will be done remotely. Because, I've also talked to a lot of women who have said, it's really nice that people now are aware that we have families and that, this idea that I'm on call 18 hours a day. And, if I'm taking a call at 10 o'clock at night, somehow if my kid interrupts me, that's a problem. It's like, I think that people are, this sort of Zoom culture or Skype culture has made people very aware that, oh yeah, look, you do have a family. There they are, demanding to be paid attention to. So I'm hoping that will stick, that, because as you know, there are also a lot of hours on set that, that don't have, you could do it faster. Like female showrunners will say, their goal is to do it as quickly as possible, not to rush it, but to not waste time because they want to go home, as opposed to like sort of the more frat, we're going to hang around, drink beer and eat Chinese food because we really don't want to go home.
Yeah, but you really can't do it faster because you're going to be forced to do it slower with COVID and all the regulations. By having less people around and by having less makeup is going to take longer. Wardrobe is going to take longer. So and you're going to probably be limited in how much exposure you can have to people for the next year. All of that's going to take longer. So, I'm thinking, and nobody is going to write big scenes anymore, big sets. They can't have a lot of extras because they will be close. So with that, I mean, I'm going to be interested to see how many big feature films are going to be made in the future, or how many 12 Angry Men there will be,
as opposed to Ben-Hur.
Conceptually.
I think that's absolutely right. I mean, let's just remember that this is not a permanent situation, and eventually, although not as fast as we would all like it, there will be a vaccine that will be effective to a certain degree. We hope to a larger degree. But in the next couple of years, I think you're absolutely right. So you have a show like Euphoria that just announced that it's going to have 2 episodes around Christmas to sort of tie, because their second season got shut down. And I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're absolutely right, Frank. Everything costs more, takes longer. And so you're probably going to see whatever season people can do. There'll be shorter episodes, or not as many episodes. The season will be shorter. And I think that for television, that's not a real problem because, they've been, experimenting with numbers of episodes and what makes a season, et cetera, for the last, 5-10 years. So I think you're going to see a lot of that. You're going to see a lot of, like you said, interior shots with 1 or 2 people. I think, you can still do a crowd scene. It'll be CG'd. You might notice that the styles are out of date because it's.
What does CG mean?
Computer graphics.
Oh, I see.
You can just pull stock and, but yeah, they won't be doing the Battle of the Bastards anytime soon, where Harrington is literally surrounded by a million guys. And I don't think that's going to be a huge problem. I mean, old Hollywood would do they can make a crowd out of 4 people. I think we can do it too. I mean, it's like, it's magic. They can make magic. But
So
I
I'm
think
going
you're right.
to
It
I'm
will
gonna
be
ask,
more expensive.
yes, I'm going to
Everything
ask
will
you
be
a
more
question.
expensive.
I'm going to ask you a question based on old Hollywood. Is old Hollywood dead, or is it just evolving?
You
And
mean
it's
movies? Are the movies dead?
well, the
I mean,
movies
old
too.
Hollywood, the studio Hollywood that's dead. That's been dead for a while. The studio system, and now you have, like, I don't
Well,
know, Disney owning everything that Amazon doesn't own, that Netflix doesn't own. I mean, if you go down, New Hollywood is in Culver City, although they're building all those buildings, and it's going to be interesting to see if anybody goes into them or when they do. But yeah, I mean, everything is changing, and people say, is this the death of movies? I'm like, everybody said television was going to be the death of movies. VCRs were going to be the death of movies. Netflix, when it was still little red envelopes, was going to be the death of movies. There's going to be no death of movies. Will some theaters pandemic? Probably. I mean, but it's like, you look at some of these theaters, and I say this as a movie lover, and it's like, do we need a Regal 26 that, where each theater seats 1,000 people? Maybe not. Maybe we go back to, like, more local theaters, smaller theaters. I don't know. I don't know what the answer
Now,
is.
is that Regal 26? Is that pretty much because just one movie's not going to be able to fill up a theater that big? I mean, they got like 26 different theaters with 26 different movies, and I always thought that was because just that there's so many different avenues of entertainment that people won't go and fill up a theater with one movie. Is that the cause of that? Because I don't know. I'm asking.
I mean, the rise of the multiplex came about because, it was around the time that everybody realized, went blockbuster. And it's like, so the multiplex sort of rose with the summer blockbuster, when they suddenly realized, if you time these films and you focus them to a very specific group, which was at the time young men, they will go multiple times. And so that increased your audience. And obviously they don't make their money as much on tickets as they do on concessions. So creating, like, a place where you want to go and hang out, that's when they started to have restaurants in the theaters and bookstores in the theaters, where they were, like, kind of creating, like, like a little mini mall in the theaters, that people would go and, hang out there for a while, spend money.
Yeah, Brian Robbins, who was one of the stars of Head of the Class, who's now the president of Nickelodeon, told me that he felt that his research showed that 90% of young people watch television, watch movies on their phones now, and that was very eye-opening to me, because we spent so much time as producers concerned about the look and the lighting and the cinematography and everything else. And when he says 90% of the young people are watching movies on their cell phones, that's a shocking figure.
But I don't think that means that's the only place they're watching movies. I think that means that is a place they're watching movies. And I think that's, we're constantly trying to do an algorithm of replacement, and that's not what it has been. It's been an algorithm of expansion. Because I remember when I, started as a television critic, people were saying television was dead. NBC turned over its 10 o'clock hour to Jay Leno because they didn't think it was worth anything. Scripted drama was dead. Family comedy was dead. It was all dead. Kids were just going to be watching webisodes on their phones, and that's it. And, like, literally, we had conversations about whether television screens themselves were going to be dead. And we've, as we've discovered, that is not true. Yes, they do watch stuff on their phones, although Quibi just
I was just going to say, one thing we know is dead is Quibi.
That was not the answer.
A $2 billion investment down the drain.
I don't even know what it is.
What an ill-timed, but I mean, it didn't thrill me anyway. And I'm somebody who, as a critic, I watch media on every single screen No, that is possible. I've watched it on my phone if I have to. I watch it mostly on my laptop. I've watched it on little DVD players that were like this big. I watch it on my big, my desktop screen. I watch it on our widescreen. And I don't love watching it on my phone, in part because of what you said, Frank. I mean, there are certain things you can watch on your phone where it's not a visual, where there aren't breathtaking, moments of scenery, where it's just like a police procedural where everybody's just kind of talking to each other. That you can watch on your phone. Or something you've already seen, you can watch on your phone. You know what I mean? Where you're just like, you just want to be kept company, or you're waiting in line and you're, bored. But yeah, I mean, I watched Quibi. I mean, first of all, I was like, are you really going to release this during the pandemic? But then I guess, what would they do? Wait a year? And I just didn't, it just was really irritating because you had to keep pressing for the next episode. I'm like, I'm not watching anything in 15-minute bits. This is crazy. It's like,
It's funny. When I listen to talking books, the audio.
It's like, all that scenery, and it just feels close enough that I identify with it, but not so close that I feel like they're talking about me. You know what I mean? It's just very comforting. Oh, Call the Midwife, I watched like all the way through. It's a great show. And I actually you should look it up. I did a list of like the best British television to watch during the pandemic. So that's what I watched. And, shows.
I read one of your columns about Downton Abbey. I read one of your columns about that. That was a really good column, by the way. It was really done well. I was going to guess, and this was just a stab in the dark, but because you were from Baltimore, I figured you'd be a big fan of The Wire and David Chase.
I am a David Simon. Yeah, I watched The Wire. That would be a show that I wouldn't have watched during the pandemic because it was upsetting. Like I didn't want.
Yeah.
I wanted to be stroked between the eyebrows. I wanted to be petted. And then I finally, now I watch some of the new shows. I'm trying to think. Now, whenever anybody asks me, years of what are you watching, and like my mind just goes absolutely blank. Which is crazy. I just watched What the Constitution Means to Me, which is available. I think it's on Amazon or Hulu, and that was really good.
I just watched the Chicago 7. I found it surprisingly good. And then I realized it was Aaron Sorkin, and I said, well, of course, But the cast, the whole thing was really, really good. And I lived through that because I'm 72. So, I was around when that was going on.
I haven't seen that yet.
Very good. I can't recommend it highly enough. It's really good. But let me ask you another question to go back to. You said when you win a Pulitzer Prize like you did in 2015 for criticism, it's a collective body of work. You have to submit at least 10 pieces. Did you find that when you were nominated in 2013 and 2014, that you felt your work was every bit as good then, or it was even better than when you won the Pulitzer for? Because I mean, that's a valid question. I would think that, art is so subjective that some people will say that's the best column she ever wrote, and somebody else will say, no, this is the best column she, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, yeah, it's really hard, and criticism is such a wide, it's like comparing not just apples and oranges, but apples and kiwis and apples and cars. I mean, it's just like there's so many different kinds of writing and criticism, writing about certain things. I was the first television critic to win in 30 years. So there was a part of me that kind of like, we need to overcome this snootiness about television. And I felt like that was something that, I was battling. It's like it's not as fancy as architecture or art or whatever, which is in no way to denigrate people who won for those things. Because, once you get, it's like the nominees list of anything. It's like everybody here deserves to win. Like there's no, it's just a question of subjectivity. But so I was very pleased. And then the next year after I won, Emily Nussbaum from the New Yorker won for television criticism. So that was pretty cool. And I felt like, they had overcome their idea that television wasn't worth writing about, that it wasn't an important subject matter. And that's what was frustrating to me at times, not connected with the Pulitzers, because it's like, yes, it's hard to, find out you were a finalist and you didn't win. You'd much rather win. But, it's like, just as it's hard to know that they nominated you and you didn't even become a finalist, that's always hard. But it was just, I did feel like the culture was not taking television seriously. And I spent many years writing about like why this is important. And then finally the culture caught up with me. So that was good. That was good.
So, Mary, let me ask you, do you think, I don't want to bite the hand that feeds me, but do you think the proliferation of self-congratulatory award shows in our industry is a little too much? We have more award shows in our industry than any other industry combined.
Well, it's kind of like, well, what would you get rid of? Would you get rid of Globes, which is essentially the Emmys and the Oscars combined?
People's choice would be my first pick.
People's choice. It is really interesting how that kind of, and I was working in entertainment, and here when it kind of became more and more important, and some of it is just economics, so many people if you take the Oscars, the LA Times for a very long time did the biggest Oscars coverage of any media. I think even more than like People magazine or something like that for years, because it was something that was happening in our city. It was something that was happening within the industry. So we would have these blowout sections, and we would actually, I remember some editors saying, we're doing too much awards. It's too, we're making too big a deal out of it. And we would always argue, it's not that it's the Oscars, it's that it's Hollywood and this is Los Angeles. So yes. But then everybody realized, people are interested in this, and advertisers will pay to have ads against this. The movies will pay, the nominated television shows will pay. And so then, I don't like to be craven or cynical, but that's a lot of it. It's like it is a very profitable part of coverage. So when you had more people writing about it, then some of these shows, like, they just become more important. They become predictors for the Oscars or predictors or whatever for, not really the Emmys. But yeah, and now there seems to be a backlash. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. The Oscars this year, I don't even know. The Emmys was insane. And it felt in a way more sincere, because it finally felt like what it was, which is an industry awards, It's like we talk about the Pulitzer. You win a Pulitzer, it's a lunch. You're there for like an hour. You walk out, get your you get, they clap for 2 seconds, you sit down. It's like you get to bring your husband. It's like you're in and out in like an hour and a half. It's not a big deal.
Wow.
Well, you say that because you won one. I've been
I know,
nominated. I've been nominated for so many Emmys that I haven't won. That it's no longer important just to be nominated. I wanted to win one, for God's sakes.
Well, that's true. That is absolutely true. And I did feel like did you watch the Emmys this year, the streaming Emmys?
Yeah.
And I felt
with one eye closed.
I things about it that I kind of liked, but what I did feel bad was because of the nature of, how they were doing it over Zoom, they spent even more time on the faces of the people who hadn't won than they do during the telecast. And I feel bad about that. I mean, they always show, like they pan really quickly, so you can see that the losers are clapping very nicely. But because of Zoom, they they were stuck on them for a few more seconds. And I thought, man, that would suck. I would totally have turned off my video.
Well, you mentioned Euphoria. My girl Zendaya won for Euphoria, so I was really happy for her.
That was amazing.
It was moving.
It's kind of it's just kind of amazing to me that they trivialize television, because I mean, I get snobs would say, okay, television critic, this, that. But I mean, it is the center of our life in America anyway. I mean, it's like it replaced the hearth. It used to be people would sit around the fire and stare at the fire. Now, even if it's mindless, whatever on television, people can sit and watch 5 hours of television and not be able to tell you what they watched the night before.
Right.
I mean, because your mind, it's like the People magazine of entertainment in a way. You just sit there and stare at it.
So what you're saying is what we do for a living is what you saying is what we do for a living is white noise.
White noise, yeah. No, but it's significant culturally in our society. That's what I'm saying. It's very significant.
But I think the reason they trivialized it was exactly what you were saying, is that they, people, and people watch television for a wide variety of reasons, and you don't have to go anywhere to do it, and you don't have to pay extra. I mean, now you do, but you just turn it on. And so, you can't, it's like you're not committing yourself to things like if you go to a movie or you go to an art gallery or you open a book. It's like it can be a very passive experience. I think one of the things that the rise of television in the last 20 years, showed is that it can be a passive experience, but now we have television where you can't look away. I mean, you can't, especially if it's got subtitles, but it's like you can't look away. Like, in the binge model, which has impacted the way we tell stories, it's like you're not going to get 10 minutes of us reminding you what happened last time. We're going to pick up right where we were. So I hope you were paying attention because something really important happened, an hour ago and it took 30 seconds and you better.
Speaking of that, I saw an article in the Times today. Where is it? It was actually a recent article. Is television ready for a Latino comedy? I think there was a headline in Thursday's Times. It was is television ready for a Latino comedy? Here is so and so. And I was thinking, wow, where were they in 2001 when we were doing Lopez?
Or Chico and the Man before that, even,
Yep. It's
crazy. I don't remember that headline. I know that we did a profile of somebody. I can't remember who it was. But I mean, they have a Latino. I mean, although it's like if you look at One Day at a Time, which has been moved around despite having a really dedicated audience, it is really interesting why why that particular demographic has been slighted by television. As you know, with Lopez, it's like there's it's expected to do more than any other TV show. Like when you have these kind of, oh, people don't watch these shows, so you put one of these shows, whatever that means, on the air, and then if it doesn't like do gazillion, viewers, then it's like, oh, well, that didn't work, as opposed to the 9 million other shows that are not doing gazillion viewers and getting
Sure. Yep.
crazy.
During this COVID period of time, the ratings for talk shows, award shows, sports are really plummeting. Why do you think that is?
Are they for sports? I haven't really been paying attention.
They are really down
Really?
for sports. Yeah, basketball is awful. Baseball's awful.
Really? I had no
Football's
idea.
down.
I would think that they'd all be up because everybody's confined. That's what you would think.
I don't know. I'm just asking Mary what she thinks.
Well, I know that sports are on in my house all the time, so we're doing our bit. I think a lot of people are.
That's a good
I
point.
think people are, they're also comforting themselves by watching. I mean, Netflix, I guess it's gone down a little bit this quarter, but I mean, their sales were through the roof, their subscriptions were through the roof. Amazon, all the streaming services have really, been picking up a lot of viewers because people want to not just distract themselves, but also I think immerse themselves in another world, which is what is so wonderful about the binge model, which is that you can just go in there and stay in there as long as you need to, and then come back out, as opposed to, regular appointment television, which is where you get an hour. And it's like, in your busy life, but now people's lives are busy in a very different way. So, and the talk shows, I think it's just because it is what we were talking about, the energy of, two people chatting over Zoom, although we're doing a wonderful job, is not the same as if you're in the room together. And so I think, it's hard to watch. The delays and the glitches and the, like I'm just realizing you can see my electric plug back there, and it's like it doesn't look as good.
I hadn't noticed, but thank you for pointing that out.
Yeah, no, I think I'd get a 4 on Room Raiders or something because I'm showing an outlet. But yeah, so I think this is not a permanent state of things. But it can have permanent damage because people are losing money and people are losing jobs. And, I don't know what it's going to look like when we come out. But I do, people keep saying, oh, we'll never go back to normal, And I think that's, as Joe Biden would say, malarkey. It's like, you see how fast people went into the bars when California stupidly opened the bars in the spring.
Yeah.
As soon as people think it's safe or even remotely safe, or even not safe, if it's open, they will go back to the old behavior, and we will see, I don't think it's going to have as big a lasting impact as people seem to think it's going to have, except for all the people that lost their jobs and all the things that didn't get made, and all the, there are going to be studios that don't make it through. There are going to be businesses that don't make it through. Will they be replaced in time by new ones? Yes, but it'll take a while.
So I know you're or have been a mentor at USC, and I was blessed to be a visiting member of your class, make a presentation to your class. What do you say, or what can you say? What advice could you give to students who want to get into journalism?
Don't know. I used to say don't, because it is, it's a hard life, and It's not a well-paid life. And, now you don't even get the prestige value of saying, it just doesn't mean as much as it used to. But no, now I think it's so important that that kids go into journalism. My son just graduated from the University of Missouri Journalism School in documentary journalism. And he, when he was looking at the school, said he was afraid that they only taught print and he was, not going to do that. And I said, oh my God, honey, I think, it used to be print at the University of Missouri was 80% of the students. And now it's 10% of the students. And they have,
wow.
Broadcast, and they have, what's it called? Interdisciplinary, where you learn how to, use all the digital platforms. But I think it's really important that journalism thrives and that journalism schools thrive and that the actual basics of the profession thrive, because there are so many ways into the public conversation. As you were saying, Frank, here we are, we're sitting here talking, and that's great. But this is not this is a podcast and should not be taken as, as journalism. You know what I mean? And it's
thank you.
Many people can get a public platform, and talk utter bullshit, and it's the platform looks exactly like a platform from, a journalist. And it's and that's what is nerve-wracking to me. And even people who want to be journalists often are not trained in the very basics of journalism, which is that, you can't, we've had these conversations where it's you can't report somebody accusing somebody of something without going to the person who's being accused and getting a response. And I've had arguments where it's well, we're not making the accusation. We're just reporting what this person is doing. And I'm just when you put it in the paper, we are responsible
Right.
for that accusation. So we need to give that person, and it's things that were drilled into your head as a journalism student. And I'm not a big, objectivity is a myth. And there are a lot of things that were bad about the old model. But I think, the balance and the, find more than one source, and no, you cannot run a story with only anonymous sources, unless it's been cleared all the way up and everybody knows who's talking and why they're not going on the record. I mean, just those things I think are really important. And also just the basic of how you find good information versus bad information. I really, even if you're not going to go into investigative journalism, I mean, here I am, I'm a culture columnist. But I remember when I was in management and the Harvey Weinstein story, and I had several reporters who were working on, we broke several stories too. And I was so grateful that I had gone to journalism school because I remembered how to do it. I remembered what you needed to do. I remembered, how far you needed to get before you took it to the lawyer. I remember how, and it's I think a lot of young people who want to be journalists and have gotten onto a platform, done really well, writing first person pieces, brought really fresh ideas and insights, which are really important. But they also need to learn, the difference between, journalism and your opinion.
Right.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Right.
I think
Or memoir. The
How
difference
much so-
between journalism and memoir.
with social media nowadays, you got so many experts and no degrees. Everybody's an expert on everything. It's and this rush in journalism now, because of all the different forms of journalism, to be first and not necessarily right. Get it right, and then don't worry about being first. There's the rush to be the first.
That is a tough one, and that is one that I mean, I have to say the LA Times is pretty cautious, and even on an obituary, we're pretty cautious, and Tom died, everybody said that he had died about 6 hours early, and we were the only ones that didn't have to pull back the obituary. And we were
Wow.
that's the worst. When you have to pull back an obituary, that's and sometimes I know our reporters get frustrated because we are very cautious. It's just, but we also haven't gotten caught too many times. by being wrong because we wanted to be right. And so there is solace in that. We've been scooped, even when we had the same information, because we were more cautious. And sometimes that's very frustrating. And but sometimes it's also like, well, thank you, Jesus, because as it turns out, something major was wrong. So
Well, that's
yeah, I think that we're seeing, because there have been so many cases where the rush to be first turned out to be not just wrong, but often like the spread of like manipulated disinformation. I think that mainstream media is pulling back a little bit more from that they are more willing to sit on things
Good to hear.
and get it right because they've been burned. And they also realize that, this isn't even an issue of just our reporting was a little sloppy or whatever, or, we didn't talk to enough people. This is about forces outside manipulating the media to put out a false story. And they're very canny. And, now you get training in like, how do you recognize, a false, somebody who's like saying, I have a tip for you. How do you recognize when it's coming from somebody who's just trying to...
There's forces out there actually trying to undermine the credibility of journalists.
Exactly. You put it much better than I did. You should...
You finally said something.
Succinctly.
Succinctly.
So we didn't have to edit.
Well, Mary, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
This has been an illuminating interview, a great experience for me.
Especially for me. Mary, it was a thrill meeting you. Absolute thrill, really.
Great. Well, maybe we can do it again in person sometime.
I'd love
For
that.
sure.
And I love your stuff. I really like reading your stuff.
Thank
I'm going to
you.
put some more of it. I really like it.
And congratulations on the book.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I
Great.
appreciate that. Coming from you, we definitely take some solace in that. If nothing else, we made Mary. We got a compliment for Mary. That's good enough.
Great. Thank you so much, Mary.
Thank you, Mary. Have a great
Bye.
day.
So, Billy Boy.
She was great. She
Yes.
was just great. It's funny when she talked about the different forms of journalism and everything. I had a buddy that worked in the National Enquirer. He worked for the Enquirer. And I said, so what's the difference with you guys and a regular publication? He goes, well, Billy, if you're doing journalism and you get a call and, he says, somebody tells you they got a talking dog, he says, you hang up on them. He said, when you were working for the Enquirer and somebody tells you they got a talking dog, the first thing I'm going to say is, put the dog on the phone. Put that dog on the phone. So it is about different forms of journalism, I guess. But she was a guest. I mean, just a great guest and so delightful of a person.
Yes, she was. Yes, she
just
was.
terrific.
Yes,
Pulitzer
she was.
Prize, huh? And I love the way she described it an hour and a half. And just I meant to ask Mary while she was on, but I'm going to ask you instead because you got the same answer. Just to clarify for a layman like me, the writer's room, I'm not behind the scenes there. Is that collective writing? Is that what we're talking about?
Yes. All TV is collective writing.
So they'll have 6 or 7 people in there you can bang it against, or
6 or 7 or 10.
yeah, you can bang it around.
Yeah, usually a writer is assigned a first draft, and then he goes into the room and everybody rips up the first draft and pitches new jokes or new directions for the stories until it's rewritten and written until the executive producer is happy with it, and then it goes down to the stage. So that's the...
So it's pretty much like a
It's a
in a
group
classroom when you put people in groups and bang ideas off of them, so they can bang it off each other.
Yep, exactly. And Quibi is...
I had no idea what that was about.
I could see your face.
I was like, Quibi. I thought it was like Hulu. I thought it was some kind of a...
It was. It was like a Hulu, but they were like broadcasting 10-minute spots. And it was set up by Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was one of the Disney guys, and Meg Whitman, who ran for governor of California.
Right, yeah, sure.
And they raised $2 million to go off the air in about 6 months.
Wow. So they were...
$2 billion.
$2 billion.
$2 billion to go off down. I got a feeling that a couple of people got rich, but I don't know who, and I'm not mentioning any names.
There's always a few people that get rich, Frank. Always a couple.
Always a few. Unfortunately, I know 3 of them that don't. Yeah. Me, you, and Derek. on these books, on these podcasts.
You know what? At this stage of the game, 72, it ain't going to change my life too
Oh,
much anyway.
and you know who's not getting rich? Nostradamus.
Not me.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
because your picks stink.
That's 4 in a row now. Four
in a
losers. But I mean, 2 of them were bad beats. When you're up by 10.5 with a minute to go, you're supposed to win the game.
So now
No, they don't pay for grenades.
That makes you 3 and 4.
3 and 4. Terrible.
By
What
the
are you
way,
gonna do?
what am I?
Oh, you're 4 and 1, I believe.
Yeah.
And you don't even look at the game.
I don't even look at the game.
Just get them tossed at you, and you're 4 and 1. That's fine.
So, what do you got this week?
Well, I don't know if anybody. Does anybody
Nostradamus.
the American Nostradamus. Let's not make him look bad. I don't think anybody really wants my picks anymore. But if you do, I did have a bad beat. Now, when you're up by 10.5 with a minute to go, you should win the game. But anyway, my pick this week, I like another underdog. I'm 3 and 4. I'm going to get back to 500 by hook or by crook. This week, I like Cincinnati plus 3.5 over Cleveland. Cleveland's 3.5-point favorite. I think Cincinnati's going to play him tough. I like this kid from LSU, quarterback. I think he's good, Burrows. So we'll see. But I mean, don't bet the rent on it. 4 and 1. Give Frank his game. Let's give him throw a game at him and see who he likes.
Okay, we got
The new guru.
The game of the day is the Lions against the Falcons. The Falcons at -2.5
At home.
At home, yeah.
The Falcons are at home.
Correct.
The Lions are on the road.
Correct.
The
And
Lions.
this guy's 4 and 1. Listen to this. And he's 4 and 1. And I can't pick a one-horse race. I couldn't pick a winner.
Did you bad beats last week? Did Atlanta blow a 10.5-point lead?
That was the week before.
Did Atlanta blow up a 10.5-point lead? Well, I'm going to go with the Lions.
Wow. Surprised you like the Lions on the road.
Well, I don't like a team that's 0-7 or whatever the hell Atlanta is. Who's got a new coach?
I'm not going to argue with you. You're 4 and 1. I'm trying to break even here.
But I'm 4 and 1. But I guarantee you, if I put $10 on each of those games, I'd be 0 and 5.
You would have changed. You would have changed the course of history.
Yes, I would have changed the course of history. So,
well, I've already earned the nickname American Nostradamus, not just because of my 3 and 4 here.
Not Nostradamus. Nostradamus, because your picks stink.
Well, I always thought that that bottle of water was the stupidest idea I ever heard of. I said, that ain't going nowhere. And non-alcoholic beer, I said, that's the stupidest thing I ever heard of. So, yeah, I guess you pretty much can live or die on my picks.
Yep. So next week, we have Chuck Dunbar and Ken Bentley. Chuck is the pro at Pebble Beach Golf Links, and Ken is the director of the Alternative Golf Professional Tour. So we'll do our Masters preview next week on Halloween.
Halloween Masters preview next week. So I should brush up on my back swing or what? I should learn what I'm talking about when I'm talking about a little golf.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Because I give him a few tips, right?
Yeah.
He's the pro at Pebble Beach, right?
For sure. Long time pro at Pebble Beach. With that, you have anything else to say?
No, my brother, just go out and get by. If these lips could talk, it's out there now, and no sense of clamoring. You might as well just get it satisfied, get it sent in the mail, and
you won't be disappointed. I mean, we're prejudiced, of course, but I have a lot of people from a lot of walks of life have commented. Some of them I know, so I got to take a grain of what they say with a grain of salt. But some of them I don't know, and those are the most gratifying to me. The people that like it that never have met me or know me or know you.
And they don't have to know either one of us. The characters in the book are pretty much household names. I mean, these are the people that you've come in contact with your whole life.
Yep.
Your whole career.
So
he hung out with a much better class of drunk than I did, apparently. Because the drunks I hung around with, I could write about all day and nobody knew.
So with that, we'll sign off and say good day.
Good day, and thanks for looking in. And tell your friends about a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. Appreciate it.
Goodbye, everybody.
We'll see you next week.